Chapter 347. Princess Consort, save her. Bai Xiao's body swayed and she was about to fall forward. Bai Xiao, Jingwan quickly reached out to catch her, but someone was faster than her. Sister He still had the strength to hold the two of them. Sister. Her tears fell uncontrollably. She did not sleep at all this night and did not even take off her clothes. She had been holding back her tears during the day. Now that she saw Bai Xiao in such a state, how could she hold back? Quickly send them into the room. Where's Gongzhou? Is he here? Jingwan tried her best to remain calm. Little did she know that she had the intention to kill someone. Jingwan had just finished speaking when Gongzhou arrived. After greeting them, Gongzhou took their pulse. Princess Consort, don't worry. Their lives are not in danger. Jingwan heaved a sigh of relief. Put in more effort. Use whatever medicine you have. I just hope that they can recover to their best condition. Yes. After hurriedly sending them into the room, Jingwan asked a few senior servant girls to go in and help. Jingwan was about to ask Li Suyen and the others who were standing behind with their heads bowed when Li Hongyuan came in late. It was not that he woke up later than Jingwan. In fact, because Jingwan did not sleep well, he was a lighter sleeper. But when Jingwan got up and flung his hand away, he was very unhappy. He got up and sat on the bed for a while before coming out. Her hair was disheveled, her clothes were untidy, and her shoes were slippery. Seeing her like this, Li Hongyuan's aura became even more oppressive. As for the fact that his upper body was naked, he was a man, so he didn't care about this kind of thing. He stood in front of Jingwan and helped her tidy her clothes. Go back to sleep. I'll handle this. Jingwan wanted to say something, but Li Hongyuan pressed a finger on her lips. As a servant, you made your master worry. They came back alive. Does Princess Consort want me to go back and deal with them? At this moment, Li Hongyuan had a domineering aura. This was rare in front of Jingwan. Li Hongyuan gently rubbed her cheek. Wan, do you not trust your husband? Of course she trusted him. Who else could be more trustworthy than him? No matter how she retaliated, this man would only be more thorough and ruthless. Jingwan looked behind him to make sure that everyone had their heads lowered. Then, she tiptoed and planted a light kiss on Li Hongyuan's lips. I won't say thank you. Li Hongyuan smiled faintly. It's my honor to serve Wan. No matter what it is, you don't have to thank me. His sweet talk skill was maxed out. Jingwan kissed his chin again and turned to walk to the bedroom. Without Jin Qinwang Fei, Jin Qinwang returned to his normal state. He leisurely put on the clothes handed over by Gong Mama, but it was only on his body. From his neck to his waist, everything was visible at a glance. Speak. As a secret guard, even if she did not have Gongzhou's medical skills, she still had to know the basic treatment of wounds. After all, she could be injured at any time when she was on a mission. At least she knew how to stop the bleeding and fight for more time. Gongzhou left the room to prepare the medicine. There were too many wounds. He was afraid that the medicine for external use was not enough. They had to be taken orally. Even if she slept relatively well later, it could not make up for the lack of sleep in the first half of the period. Jingwan still woke up at a fixed time. After simply dressing up, Jingwan went to check on Bai Xiao. Bai Xiao had not woken up yet, but she had changed her clothes. At least she did not look so embarrassed. At least her face was still pale. Is this the girl called Daybreak? No wonder Jingwan remembered her. She had a deep impression. Yes. Blackie nodded with certainty. Jingwan saw that Blackie looked a little tired and haggard. Go and have a rest. Thank you, Your Highness. I've slept before. Jingwan did not say much. She thought that if Bai Xiao did not wake up, her heart would not be at ease. Did Gong Jiu say when they will wake up? He said that he would do acupuncture again later. They should be able to wake up today. Gong Jiu entered the room and bowed respectfully to Jingwan, Your Highness. Jingwan nodded, do I do acupuncture now? We still need to wait for another hour. Bai Xiao's wounds are deep and difficult to heal. I have made a stronger medicine. Then he handed the medicine to Blackie. Blackie naturally did not hesitate and was about to apply the medicine for Bai Xiao. Leave the wounds. Let me have a look. Gong Jiu said. Blackie nodded quickly. When Gong Jiu turned around, she carefully untied Bai Xiao's clothes and then the white cloth to cover Bai Xiao's skin. Dr. Gong, it's done. Jingwan looked at the wound and frowned. It almost crossed the entire abdomen. Although it did not penetrate and did not expose the abdomen, it was not far from it. Such a wound would definitely be difficult to heal. Even if it healed, it would leave a scar that could not be removed. In addition, the weather was too hot and the wound was already slightly inflamed. Gong Jiu looked at the wound and was also not optimistic. He first checked Bai Xiao's pulse and then prepared the medicine. Gong Jiu. Jingwan said with slight hesitation. Gong Jiu paused, Your Highness, what are your orders? He did not show any emotion because of Jingwan's interruption. The wound is so big. Can you sew it up? Gong Jiu was slightly stunned, Your Highness, do you mean to sew it up like a garment? He lowered his head to look at Bai Xiao's wound and a trace of emotion flashed across his eyes. Yes, I think the wound is too big. If you sew it up, the contact between the wound and the outer fabric will be much smaller. Moreover, if the flesh and blood are put together, will it be faster than regenerating it? In this aspect, Jingwan did not understand. In her previous life, she had only learned basic first aid, so she could only give her opinion. Your Highness, your idea is very good. But in this way, you will have to cut off the necrotic flesh on the surface of the wound. Yes. Of course, the necrotic flesh had to be cut off. But, will it be very painful? Your Highness, please rest assured. I will give Miss Bai Xiao acupuncture treatment and will not let her feel any intense pain. Acupuncture anesthesia. That was too awesome. That's good. I still need to think about the details. Your Highness, she did not think much of the difference in status, but it was not good for a princess to stay in a servant's room for too long. I'll go back and have breakfast with the prince. I'll leave this to you. Your Highness, please rest assured. When Jingwan returned to the room, Li Hongyuan had already gotten up. However, he sat on the edge of the bed like a statue and did not move for a long time. Obviously, he was angry again. Jingwan felt helpless. She went forward to help him change his clothes and personally tied his hair. Li Hongyuan did not say anything, but he was very cooperative. After breakfast, An Yi brought news, Your Highness, the #1 salt merchant in Jiangnan, Tai Yan Tu, has been cut off his family line. It is preliminarily concluded that Miss Bai Xiao came out of his courtyard last night, https://11/11807/6653941. Mobile Edition. Chapter 348. After breakfast, An Yi brought news, Wang Ye, Jiangnan's #1 salt merchant, Tai Yan Tu, was. An Yi stealthily glanced at Jingwan and deliberated for a moment. His family line ended. Initially, Miss Bai Xiao came out of his other courtyard last night. About 70 li south of Chuanzhou Prefecture, there is a manor. As for the other one, she was married the day before yesterday. Her first night was bought by Tai Yentu for a high price of 800,000 taels. He added another 200,000 taels and took her away for 3 days. Jingwan stared blankly. A moment later, she reached out to pick up a crystal bag and nonchalantly opened her mouth. "Ah Yuan, that Tai Yentu should be on your list to clean up, right?" Li Hongyuan indifferently responded. This was also the reason why Bai Xiao and the others had not yet woken up when they received the news. Because they wanted to clean up, naturally they had been watching for a long time. It was just that the people they planted were originally in Jiangnan, so they did not know Bai Xiao's origins. They were also accustomed to Tai Yentu bringing women back every 3 to 5 days. It was just that when something happened, they quickly reported it. In the brothel, he casually took out 1,000,000 taels. The number 1 salt merchant really lives up to his reputation. What's the saying again? So poor that all he has left is money. This is probably the kind of person I'm talking about, right? It's just that his courage is not small. I don't know if he ate a bear's heart or a leopard's gall, daring to directly kidnap my people in the city. Jingwan's gaze swept towards Li Hongyuan. He simply did not take Jin Wangye seriously. There seemed to be a bit of sarcasm, but Li Hongyuan did not take it seriously. However, he was also a bit puzzled about this matter. That day at Baifangdu, that Tai Yentu made a special trip to the door. His intention to express goodwill could not be more obvious. A few days ago, he sent a visiting card, but he had been suppressed and did not respond. It was unlikely that because of this, he would kidnap Wanwan's servant girl, right? If he was really that stupid, how could he reach the position of Jiangnan's number 1 salt merchant? He would have been overthrown long ago. Therefore, this matter most likely had a hidden story. However, regardless of whether there was an ulterior motive or not, he originally only wanted to eliminate him and divide his family. But now, he had angered his wife. Even if he had committed 3 crimes, he still had to be punished 10 times. Especially when she saw that Jingwan's breakfast was 1/3 less than usual, she silently added another sin to her heart. Jingwan felt that something was wrong. She needed to find something to do to distract herself. I've seen Wanwan's paintings of flowers, birds, fishes, insects, and even mountains, rivers, plants, and trees. However, I haven't seen any portraits of people. Why don't you try it, Wanwan? Jingwan looked at him. Why did he suddenly mention this? However, seeing that a certain someone was still very calm and didn't seem to have any deeper meaning, Jingwan smiled gently. Sure. After that, Jingwan went to the study, leaving only Qing Ju to serve the brush and ink. The others were sent to Bai Xiao and the others. Last night had been more tiring. Because they couldn't leave people, they could only take turns to rest. The first thing that came to Jingwan's mind was the 12 golden hairpins. Of course, it was just a name. She could choose 12 beauties to draw. No matter if it was the beauties she had seen before or if she made some slight changes to their faces, it would be a pretty good theme. After thinking about the subject, she directly began to draw. If she wanted to draw well, she naturally couldn't be distracted. She needed to be sufficiently focused. After spending a certain amount of time, she temporarily forgot about other things. Plum, orchid, bamboo, and chrysanthemum usually served Jingwan when she was drawing, so they didn't get in her way. On the contrary, the initial color of the ink used to sketch the appearance was just right. There was no need for Jingwan to make a second adjustment. At the same time, no matter which direction she drew, the adjusted ink was always in the front right. After she got used to it, she didn't even need to use her eyes. Her habitual movements could be dipped in ink. Naturally, it saved a lot of time. No one came to disturb her, including Bai Xiao and Daybreak who woke up. No one came to disturb her. This was because she actually didn't need to do anything. After about an hour, Jingwan would rest and move around. She sat down to eat some tea and snacks. Then, she would look outside the window. Jingwan also didn't ask about the situation outside. Later, Li Hongyuan came over. He saw that Jingwan had finished drawing the appearance of all the paintings. Some of them had even been colored once. Because most of the paintings were rolled up, Li Hongyuan stretched out his hand and unfolded it until he could see the whole picture. With just a few strokes, the beauties outlined in various poses were already pleasing to the eye. It could be imagined that when the painting was finished, it would be a stunning work. It was enough to show some of Jingwan's skills. It's Wan's first time to draw such a big painting. Yes, it's my first time. This painting would probably take her a long time. Of course, this was under the condition that the time was relatively concentrated. If it was more scattered and she went on a tour, she might not be able to finish painting in a year and a half. Li Hongyuan didn't say anything else. However, he was still unhappy. As for the reason why he was unhappy, it was because his wife's first time wasn't his. It would be strange if he was happy. However, he didn't show his emotions this time. If he could completely flip over the jar of vinegar because of a painting, then Wan probably wouldn't care about him. In fact, after they got married, Jingwan didn't have much time to draw. After all, a certain person was too clingy. Sometimes, when she was drawing, the nature of the painting would accidentally change. However, there were still a few times when she was quietly drawing. Li Hongyuan tilted his head and looked at Jingwan. "Do you need help?" Jingwan paused and turned to look at him. "No need. Ah, Yuan, you can either stay by the side or go out and do your own things." There was a bit of firmness in her tone that didn't allow any objection. Li Hongyuan clenched his fist and put it to his lips. He smiled meaningfully. Wan, you don't have to be so nervous." Jingwan was vaguely being teased by this bastard again. She glared at him. "Your Highness, you're not allowed to come within 5 steps of me." Li Hongyuan nodded, indicating that there was no problem. However, he agreed so readily. Jingwan was worried again. She turned around and gave Qingju a strict order. She was not allowed to go out without her permission. Li Hongyuan chuckled at Jingwan's "every bush and tree is an enemy." As expected, he received another angry glare from Jingwan. Li Hongyuan surrendered and said that he wouldn't dare to do it again. Qingju also covered her mouth and snickered at the side. After that, Qingju was vented her anger on by her master. Li Hongyuan was very well-behaved until lunchtime. He leaned on the couch and looked at Jingwan with a lazy expression. However, his eyes were unusually gentle. It was as if she was the only one in his world. Jingwan might have felt uncomfortable at first, but as time passed, she got used to it. Occasionally, she would turn around to look at him with a faint and gentle smile. Excluding the matters outside, there was a feeling of peace and tranquility. Jingwan and others didn't leave the study until noon, when it was almost lunchtime. During the process of setting the table, Jingwan asked Nanny Gong about Bai Xiao and Morning Dawn. As expected, they had woken up. Bai Xiao didn't need to say anything. Except for the relatively few whip wounds on the surface of her body, the wounds on her abdomen were not only caused by the sharp weapons. It would take at least half a month for her to be able to move freely. As for Morning Dawn, it seemed that she only had superficial wounds. However, she had been abused for a long time. Except for her face and hands, there was hardly any intact skin and flesh on her body. Not to mention other things, not many people could bear the burning pain all over her body. In Jingwan's opinion, as long as they could be saved, it would be a blessing. She was more worried about their psychological condition. Psychological trauma was often the most fatal. What exactly happened? Did Bai Xiao tell you? Jingwan asked. Yes, she did. It's like this. Bai Xiao went to the street as usual, but this time, she met Su Ting. Yes, it was the concubine's daughter who was sold to Iron Salt by Governor Su. She naturally recognized Bai Xiao, and Bai Xiao couldn't forget her. In terms of martial arts, Bai Xiao could defeat 10 or 20 Su Ting in a minute. In terms of cunning, 10 or 20 Bai Xiao couldn't defeat her. Bai Xiao was just stopped and said a few words, and Su Ting used some kind of drug on Bai Xiao. What happened after Bai Xiao fell into a coma was not very clear, but according to their investigation, Su Ting should have taken people out of the city directly. Bai Xiao woke up in pain. When she woke up, Iron Salt's whip fell on Bai Xiao's body. The drug didn't seem to have completely disappeared. She didn't have much strength and was stripped of her clothes. The shame of a girl's reputation being inexplicably ruined made her scared. Moreover, it seemed that she was also drugged. Her throat was dry and painful, and she could only endure all kinds of torture. After that, it was Daybreak who saved her. That's right, they were in the same room. Daybreak was only wearing underwear, and her entire body was covered in wounds. She seemed to have been in a coma before, but after waking up, Daybreak dragged her wounds and forcefully attracted Salthead's attention to herself. Then, Bai Xiao watched helplessly as Daybreak took the blame for her. To Bai Xiao, this was a huge blow. All along, Bai Xiao did not have any vicious thoughts. But at that time, she wanted nothing more than to tear that fat pig into pieces. Whatever shame, whatever fear, she threw them all aside. In her constant struggle, the effects of the drug seemed to have worn off. https://11/11807/6653944. Mobile edition. Chapter 349. After calming down, Bai Xiao's IQ also came back. She hastily put on her clothes and helped Daybreak put on another one. Then, she brought Daybreak out of the back window. Daybreak originally wanted Bai Xiao to leave by herself, but everyone who knew her well knew Bai Xiao's temperament. She had always been homeless with her younger sister. She clearly had a better way out, but because of Sister Blackie, she always resolutely shook her head. Not to mention that Daybreak had taken her place. Even if this didn't happen, Bai Xiao most likely wouldn't leave Daybreak alone. She was unfamiliar with this place and didn't know how many people were in this villa. It wasn't a wise decision to rashly go out. Bai Xiao placed Daybreak in the shadows of the darkness and went to light a few more fires, adding another stroke to the chaos caused by Iron Salt's miserable howls. It should be relatively easy to escape from such a chaotic situation. However, she was probably unlucky to meet 3 men who were blocking her way. Even if they weren't very strong, they were definitely trained. Bai Xiao put down Daybreak and prepared to fight to the death. She was injured during the fight. However, because she was determined to die, she snatched a saber midway and got rid of the 3 men. Needless to say, what happened after that could be guessed. In short, Bai Xiao must have put in a lot of effort to bring Daybreak back alive. Jingwan's face didn't change much. A businessman with a huge family fortune and a group of armed guards. What does he want to do? The nature of a businessman was completely elevated to another level. Jingwan didn't need to say much about his ending. As for someone plotting against him, Li Hongyuan pulled Jingwan to sit at the table. I'll take care of this. Wan, don't worry. Save Su Ting's life for me. Didn't I say I'll take care of it? Wan, don't worry. I'll take care of everything. Don't dirty your hands for that kind of person. If you want to keep her life, just let her live. Li Hongyuan's smile after he finished speaking made Jingwan inexplicably a little creepy, but she knew that it was not directed at her. If that's the case, I don't care anymore. It was fine to live, but she was afraid that it would be worse than death. Jingwan's heart did not waver in the slightest. Since Su Ting dared to scheme and use them, she naturally had to be prepared to pay a heavy price. After lunch, Jingwan went to check on Bai Xiao and Daybreak. They were both awake and had some food. The two of them subconsciously wanted to get up and salute, but Jingwan hurriedly asked them to lie down. The trauma in her heart was not something that could be healed with just a few words. Moreover, Jingwan was not a psychiatrist. Sometimes, the more she spoke, the greater the damage. After careful observation, Jingwan realized that Daybreak's mood was much calmer. She was mostly enduring the pain on her body. Thinking about it, it wasn't hard to explain. After all, a girl who came from a brothel had already undergone strict training and was mentally prepared. Naturally, she didn't care much about her reputation. Daybreak, Your Highness. Daybreak's voice was weak because of the pain on her body. Thank you. Jingwan didn't lie at all. Daybreak smiled slightly, but because of the pain on her body, her smile was a little forced. This servant was born in a brothel, a lowly life. I just didn't want to see such a beautiful girl being defiled by him. At that time, I thought that it would only be a matter of time, and I wouldn't be able to change the final outcome. However, I didn't expect that a completely different situation would occur. It is this servant who should say thank you. According to the situation at that time, it was true, but Daybreak probably didn't expect Bai Xiao to be so skillful. If you hadn't blocked for Bai Xiao, she might not have had the strength to stand up even if the effect of the medicine was gone. It's the cycle of karma. Daybreak didn't say anything. It was the cycle of karma. Take care of yourself. Don't think about other things. I've caused a lot of trouble for Your Highness here, but I can't move now. Please send someone to send me back to the pavilion boat. What kind of noble person was the princess consort? How could her personal maid take care of a lowly person like her day and night? Jingwan paused. You still want to go back? Daybreak looked at Jingwan and a trace of surprise flashed in her eyes. I'm a lowly person. If I fake my death and leave the pavilion boat, I'll be an illegal resident. Even if I give up my face, I can protect myself within a certain range. But I can't do anything. How can I settle down? Her life was exchanged with her mother's life. She promised her mother that she would live no matter what. So even if she fell into the dust of a brothel, she never thought of committing suicide. When Daybreak said this, she still didn't show any emotion, as if she was just stating a fact. The feeling Jingwan had when she met Daybreak for the first time came again. She was either dead in her heart and lived only for the sake of living, or she was too shrewd and everything was calculated by her. According to the current situation, it was unlikely that she was the one who calculated everything. Moreover, even if she was the one who calculated everything, she should have done it step by step. If she was really helpless and had seen through the world of mortals, it would be a pity for such a woman to continue to practice in that kind of place. I don't mind having one more person by my side. How about being my maid? If you don't want to serve me, I can arrange another identity for you. Daybreak was a little surprised. Then she lowered her eyes and apparently fell into deep thought. Jingwan originally thought that she would quickly agree, but the current situation was a little unexpected. Generally, he would ruthlessly abuse them for 2 days and then do it with his body covered in blood. Jingwan only had one word left in her heart: pervert. And it was the kind that couldn't be more derogatory and disgusting. It's too easy to kill this kind of person with a knife. Mama Gong said in her heart, because of Your Highness's words, some people will die a horrible death. Li Hongyuan naturally had no objection to Jingwan's request to let Daybreak stay. As long as she served her master with all her heart like the other maids and didn't have any evil thoughts, she would just have another mouth to feed. As for whether this person would do anything wrong, to be honest, it would be strange if something happened under his watch. Jingwan still asked Eunuch Move to go. Speaking of which, a eunuch repeatedly visited a brothel to seek psychological trauma. Eunuch Mu went and came back quickly. But he didn't send out the money he prepared to redeem himself. Instead, he brought back a box. I went to the pavilion boat and explained the matter clearly. When I was about to talk about redeeming myself, the boat owner asked me to wait for a while. In the end, I waited for this box. I didn't see what was in the box, but the boat owner said that it was a banknote of 1,000,000 taels of silver. According to the boat owner, she originally wanted me to bring some jewelry back for Miss Daybreak, but those things were given to Miss Daybreak by her previous customers. Now that she's out of that place, it's uncomfortable to use those things. As for the 1,000,000 taels of silver, it's the money for Miss Daybreak to sell herself. Logically speaking, Miss Daybreak would be reminded of sad things when she saw the money. She couldn't accept the boat owner's intention. The boat owner doesn't seem to be a person in this line of work. Jingwan was a little surprised. Li Hongyuan raised his eyelids and didn't say anything. He naturally didn't take these people seriously. Since the money is for Daybreak, Nanny, you can send it to her. Following a super rich person like Li Hongyuan, 1,000,000 taels of silver was nothing in her eyes. Fine, even if she was poor, it was impossible for her to take Daybreak's money for herself. However, a girl who came from a brothel and became a servant girl of the prince's mansion now had a huge sum of money. Perhaps this was unprecedented and would never happen again. When Luo Jingying got married, she only had 5,000 taels of silver. Although there were various reasons, under normal circumstances, when a girl from the Luo family got married, her dowry would only add up to tens of thousands of taels of silver. This was already considered a very generous dowry. For an ordinary family, a dozen taels of silver was enough for a family of 4 to eat for a year. One could imagine how much money this was. Eunuch Mu always thought that he was probably the richest servant in the prince's residence. Now, compared to Daybreak, he was just a pauper. Sure enough, comparisons were odious. Nanny Gong directly took the things to Daybreak and didn't say anything. Daybreak didn't avoid it and opened it directly. On the surface, it was a letter. When he opened the letter, there wasn't much content. It looked like it was written in a hurry. However, Daybreak read it for a long time. He read it over and over again. At the beginning, his eyes turned red, but he held it back. Towards the end, he couldn't hold it back anymore and started crying. In Nanny Gong's eyes, Daybreak was a special girl. Unless she had to smile, her emotions were always indifferent. Even when she was injured, she didn't make a sound. Now, she was crying like this. However, it was not a bad thing that she could cry. After crying for about half an hour, Daybreak slowly calmed down and carefully put the letter away. In the future, she would have nothing to do with Auntie May. They wouldn't have any contact and they wouldn't meet again. Although she was a servant, she was still considered to have a proper background. She had the right to despise people like Auntie May. But, what could she do? Qing Zhu gently patted Daybreak's shoulder. Sister, don't be too sad. Take care of your body. Auntie May really treats me like her own daughter. Since that's the case, you should be well. This way, she will be happy in her heart. Daybreak nodded. Sister, can I trouble you to do something? Can you send these banknotes to the princess? https://11/11807/6653979. Chapter 350. Daybreak hesitated for a moment, but in the end, she still put it away and casually placed it on the side of the pillow. Perhaps it was because she had fiercely cried, but at this time, she felt physically and mentally exhausted. Closing her eyes, she quickly fell into dreamland, but her sleep was not stable. Her closed eyelids trembled slightly and her eyelashes were slightly moist. Looking at her, one could not help but feel pity for her. Qing Zhu wrung out a handkerchief and wiped her face. Sitting on the side of her bed, she quietly watched her for a moment. Sighing in her heart, Hongyan's life was full of misfortune. Soon after, a smile appeared on her face. Thinking that in the future, it would not be like this. Wang Fei was the best mistress, generous and benevolent. As long as they did not have any thoughts that they should not have and obediently did what they should do, their lives would not be bad. After daybreak, it gradually calmed down. It was probably because her heart had calmed down and was ready to welcome a new life. Daybreak slept for more than 2 shurchen. After waking up, her spirit looked a lot better and the feeling that she gave people also changed a little. She seemed to not be so indifferent and had some vitality, as if her dead heart had started to beat again. However, it was not strange to have this kind of change. Leaving that kind of place was equivalent to jumping out of the fire pit. She also did not enter the inner residence as a concubine, so she did not have to worry about the chaos of fighting between wives and concubines. Being well-behaved, she could always live a comfortable and stable life. Daybreak turned her head and saw that the box beside the pillow was motionless. It could be seen that during the time she was asleep, no one had reached out their hand. Although she did not know the specific amount inside, but with the face value of 10,000 taels per piece, there were at least several 100,000 taels in the box. As the saying goes, wealth moves people's hearts. As a servant of Jin Wangfu, they could not be moved by so much money. Were they as rich as their mistress and did not even have the slightest curiosity? Definitely not. It could only mean that their temperament was good. Daybreak slowly smiled. It seemed that the pain on her body had lessened a lot. Although it was still painful, her heart felt comfortable. Her action was not deliberately to test anything. Daybreak was also a person who did not care much about money, so she just casually let it go. Then, she unexpectedly got this kind of result. They had stayed in Chuanzhou Fu for a long time. According to the plan, they would leave in the next few days and head to the next Fu city. As for Bai Xiao and Daybreak, they would either stay in Chuanzhou Fu to recuperate or go with them. After all, when Jingwan and the others left, they could also stay on the boat. Taking advantage of the 2 or 3 days left, they could recuperate more. At that time, it was up to them whether they left or not. Naturally, Gong Jiu was still busy making the elixir of youth. From the first batch of medicine, he knew that this prescription was not fake. It was indeed that ancient prescription. Moreover, after carefully studying the medicine in it, he was 100% sure that it would hinder fertility. Moreover, as long as one took 10 pills, it would take at least 10 years of recuperation to conceive a child. Moreover, the damage caused by this medicine could not be seen under normal circumstances. After careful consideration, Gong Jiu made some slight changes to the prescription. Originally, there were 10 pills. 5 pills would take 10 or 20 years of recuperation, and it had to be done properly. In this way, 100 people could save nearly half of the medicinal herbs. It also saved time and effort. Why not? During this period, Li Hongyuan met 2 people. One was Iron Salt Head, and the other was Su Ting. It was unknown whether it was intentional or not, but the 2 of them met together. Iron Salt Head's injuries hadn't healed yet. His body was still as fat as a pig's. However, the Maitreya Buddha's smile on his face had disappeared. Only after seeing Li Hongyuan did the evil aura around his body lessen a little. He, Iron Salt Head, had followed his father to run the business when he was a little over 10 years old. At that time, he was just a small merchant. After suffering enough, he also learned to be obedient. After 34 years, he thought that he had the means and shrewdness. But he did not expect that in the end, he would fall into the hands of a woman. Of course, when he did not know for the time being, this woman naturally referred to Bai Xiao. After that, Li Hongyuan wanted to deal with Iron Salt Head, and was preparing to uproot his power and family. As such, naturally, he would not make a big fuss. After all, Jiangnan was so big. Moreover, Iron Salt Head was said to be the #1 salt merchant in Jiangnan, but the scope of his business was not just Jiangnan. If the power behind him was alerted, those people might escape. Without a doubt, they would also take away a large amount of money. Li Hongyuan did not lack money, but he would not complain about having too much money. After all, if he really sat on the throne, there would be too many places to spend money. Therefore, when Iron Salt Head was brought over, he had not yet become a prisoner. Because Iron Salt Head was carried in, Li Hongyuan did not force him to stand up and salute. Li Hongyuan sat on the main seat, sipping his tea a little absent-mindedly. Then, he placed the teacup on the table, making a slight sound. His gaze did not look at Iron Salt Head at all, but fell on the kneeling Su Ting. However, that gaze was like the baptism of the 4 gods. Even if Su Ting lowered her head, she would definitely feel as if there was a blade at her back, and she could not help but tremble. Li Hongyuan supported his chin with one hand. To scheme against this prince, your courage is not small. If there was a bit of luck before, Su Ting would already be trembling like a sieve at this moment. She knew that she wanted to borrow a knife to kill someone, and it was actually a dangerous move. However, she really could not stand Iron Salt Head's torment. The injuries on her body had never healed, and because of her hard bones, she gritted her teeth and endured it again and again, arousing Iron Salt Head's interest. Su Ting really could not stand it anymore, but she also did not have the guts to resist. Towards Iron Salt Head, she feared and hated him even more. She wanted to break away from his control, but also wanted to ruthlessly retaliate. Iron Salt Head had designs on Sister He, but Sister He was someone who served Jin Qin Wang, so Iron Salt Head would not lose his mind. She set her sights on Bai Xiao, who had the same face as Sister He. In any case, Iron Salt Head had never seen Bai Xiao before. Of course, if she wanted to escape, she would not stupidly send herself into Iron Salt Head's hands. In order to cover up Bai Xiao's identity, not only did she take the things that represented her identity, she also fed her a mute medicine that could make people temporarily speechless. Even if she could endure Iron Salt Head's abuse, she also had a way to make Bai Xiao lose her life quickly. Everything had been arranged, but she did not expect that Bai Xiao was a martial arts expert. As long as Bai Xiao came back alive, Su Ting would definitely not be able to escape. Iron Salt Head was still confused and did not understand what Li Hongyuan meant. He looked at Li Hongyuan with puzzled eyes. Li Hongyuan did not pay attention to him, but Mu Gonggong sneered, "The one who hurt you, a commoner, is Wang Fei Nyang's personal maid. She was schemed against by the woman beside you and fell into your hands. Wang Fei Nyang has always been very protective of the people around her. She was injured like that and almost lost her life. Wang Fei Nyang is very angry." Iron Salt Head originally thought that he would find the slut who hurt him. If he did not skin her alive, he would not be able to dispel the hatred in his heart. Now, how could he still not understand? Looking at Su Ting, his eyes were as wide as copper bells. He really fell into the hands of a woman, but he missed one. This was the main culprit. His fat body suddenly rolled over, and the pain in his body seemed to have disappeared. He rushed over and clutched Su Ting's neck tightly. "Slut, slut, slut." Su Ting's eyes rolled to the back of her head. She tried her best to pry Iron Salt's hand away. However, the strength of a person who had reached the pinnacle of hatred was no small matter. Su Ting's face turned pale and the strength of her struggle became weaker and weaker. It looked like she was only left with one breath. However, how could Li Hongyuan let her die so easily? With just a look, An Yi came forward and touched Iron Salt Head's arm gently. Iron Salt Head let go of her. Su Ting collapsed to the ground. She took a breath and covered her neck with her hands, coughing violently. The feeling of dying was definitely not good. Su Ting only felt that she had survived a disaster. Give her mute medicine and send her to the pavilion boat. Tell the owner of the boat not to treat her unfairly. Also, she can't leave the pavilion boat without redeeming her. Li Hongyuan's words completely determined Su Ting's future fate. Su Ting, who had not yet recovered, narrowed her eyes. Wang Yi. The pain in her throat made her unable to speak clearly. She couldn't say the rest of her words. Her mouth was gagged and she was dragged out. Li Hongyuan's gaze fell on Iron Salt Head. His gaze was similar to how he looked at Su Ting. Iron Salt Head trembled and hurriedly knelt down. Wang Yi, this commoner really didn't know about this matter. If this commoner knew, even if you gave this commoner 100 guts, this commoner would never dare to covet Wang Ye's woman. Wang Yi, please calm your anger, please calm your anger, just saying that you didn't know, just saying calm your anger is enough. Li Hongyuan's tone was indifferent, but Iron Salt Head was sweating profusely. He was originally fat, so he sweated a lot. In a short time, his clothes were completely soaked, as if he was fished out of the water. He hurriedly turned his body to the back. The person who followed him, who looked like a housekeeper, hurriedly handed over the box in his arms. Iron Salt Head received it and respectfully raised it above his head, an insignificant gift to apologize to Wang Yi and Wang Fei. An apology gift has been prepared, and you still say that you didn't know? This was clearly picking a bone, but Jin Qinwang now held Iron Salt Head's life and death, so Iron Salt Head didn't dare to refute a single word. Wrong, this commoner was confused. This is a small profit to show filial respect to Wang Yi. Wang Yi, please kindly accept it. When you return, immediately prepare another gift to apologize to Wang Yi. Wang Yi, please kindly accept it. Li Hongyuan raised his chin. Mu Gonggong understood and took the box. Opening it, he presented it to Li Hongyuan for a look. From the looks of it, there are several million taels in banknotes, and this is still an insignificant gift. Ben Wang is rather curious, what will be the generous gift that you all gave? A mere merchant had more than 20 million taels of wealth. Of course, this was just gold and silver. How could such a person not think of ways to plunder all kinds of rare treasures? This part was really hard to estimate. Therefore, this Iron Salt Head's net worth was really frightening. Wang Yi will not be disappointed, Wang Yi will not be disappointed. Today, he was called by Jin Qinwang. He thought that there was an answer to his previous visit, so even if his injury wasn't healed, he still forced himself to come. The 5 million taels in banknotes was originally a filial gift to make friends. He also knew that if the first gift was too much, it would only make the other party's appetite grow bigger and bigger. Perhaps in the future, the other party would reach out and ask for money from time to time, becoming more and more accustomed to it. However, he himself also knew that the only capital he held in his hands was money. Other connections, in the eyes of a Wang Yi, were nothing. Therefore, if he wanted to climb this high branch, he had to let the other party see his value. Clenching his teeth, he took out 10 million taels in one go, and the result, but now, the nature was completely different. It was money to buy his life. See the guest out. Iron Salt Head didn't dare to say anything and could only respectfully withdraw. After he went out, he almost fell head first. In his life, Iron Salt Head had never suffered such a big loss. However, after suffering this loss, he didn't have the slightest thought of revenge. When he thought of Su Ting who had harmed him to this extent, he hated her so much that he vomited blood. However, it was impossible to redeem her. Even bringing her out of the pavilion boat for 1 or 2 days was not possible. Now, he couldn't personally deal with her, but he could call someone to do it. Slut, if I don't make you beg for life and death, Laozi wouldn't be called Iron Salt Head. Inside the room, Li Hongyuan's banknotes lacked interest, squeeze people dry and send them to be salt slaves. So, to Li Hongyuan, this black-hearted and black-bellied person, apologizing would be enough. Wishful thinking. Moreover, he didn't even verbally promise. If it wasn't to save trouble, Iron Salt Head wouldn't even have time to recuperate. And this filial piety became Jingwan's private property. Jingwan felt that ever since she married, ever since she was engaged to a certain person, she had become numb to things like gold, silver, and treasures. Especially on this trip to Jiangnan, not to mention counting money until her hands cramped, looking at these things was like looking at a pile of waste paper. She felt that she had almost lost the concept of money. It was just a number. Jingwan felt that she needed to find something to balance it out. After thinking about it, she got it. In the last feudal dynasty in her previous life, the Empress Dowager, who was at the end of the country and family, spent 40,000 taels of silver a day. She spent 10 million taels of silver on her birthday. In comparison, she only received a little more and didn't squander. And it was balanced. And the owner of the pavilion boat, Auntie May, took over Su Ting and said that she would definitely follow the prince's instructions. At this point, Su Ting, who was good at singing and dancing, had unparalleled talent, and was beautiful to a certain extent, not inferior to Daybreak, became the lowest prostitute on the pavilion boat. As long as one could step through the door of the pavilion boat, they could casually ask for her with a bit of money. Throughout the day and night, except for that little bit of rest time, she wouldn't lack all kinds of men by her side. Moreover, Auntie May also forbade her from showing off her talent. Every time she found out, she would be beaten to death. These days would accompany Su Ting until she died. Whether she died on the bed or really couldn't take it anymore and committed suicide. However, Auntie May was a kind person. She gave the only bit of kindness she had to Daybreak. Wanting to die under her hands was not a simple matter. After 2 days, Gongjiu's ageless pills were all prepared. Li Hongyuan did as he said and directly sent people to deliver it to the Pei family's Chuanzhou residence. Eunuch Mu personally brought a few people and handed the things to the head of the family with a smile. Then, he warmly greeted the Pei family's madam and the few ladies. That Pei family's people didn't dare to be negligent and respectfully answered one by one. The old lady is awake. That's the best. We can bring the ageless pills back to the Pei family's main residence. As Eunuch Mu said this, he clicked his tongue in wonder. This old lady's life was really tough. Gongjiu had already told her to prepare for her funeral, but she still stubbornly held on and even woke up. Facing Eunuch Mu, the head of the family broke out in a cold sweat. I'll have to trouble old Mister to take care of those ladies. He seemed to be referring to the boxes containing the ageless pills. TSK, the ageless pills. Although it was harmful, for some people, it was also a great temptation. Goodbye. After sending Eunuch Mu off, the head of the family stood in place for a long time. He wiped the sweat from his forehead and personally looked at the boxes and had people move them to the main courtyard. When his wife saw these things and knew what they were, she couldn't help but tremble. Master, are these really going to be sent back to the main residence? Of course, but it has nothing to do with us. Go and take out 6 bottles now and send them to the 6 ladies. The old lady was startled. Her lips wriggled, but in the end, she didn't say anything. It wasn't like she hadn't done this kind of immoral thing before. She had even killed an unborn child, not to mention that she hadn't killed anyone yet. Moreover, she was afraid that she had no choice but to do this. If she didn't do it, the ageless pills might be used on her own descendants. Outsiders could never be more important than family. The old lady led a group of maidservants and women to the small courtyard where the Pei family's ladies were locked up. https://11/11807/6653983 M. Chapter 351. These days, they had been clamoring for the main character. Now that they finally saw her, each and every one of them harshly threatened her. Unfortunately, the old woman was too lazy to pay attention to them. She directly had them captured and forced down all the immortal pills. This immortal pill generally needed to be taken at least once every 3 days. At one time, it was 5 pills with increased efficacy. The side effects were even worse than before. As for whether there would be any side effects other than hindering children, Gong Jiu expressed that he also didn't know. After all, he didn't find anyone to test the efficacy of the pill. Things that were forced down people's throats, no one would think that it was a good thing. Old witch, what did you give us to eat? As they questioned, they reached out to scratch their necks, wanting to spit out the thing. The old woman was quite indifferent towards these people from the main family. People from prestigious families all thought highly of themselves and considered everyone beneath them. As the saying goes, if the upper beam is not straight, the lower beam will be crooked. The virtue of these little ones was enough to see what the previous generation was like. It was no wonder that it caused the family to fall to such a state today. Not to mention that there was no family power in the imperial court. Even if there was, such insolence would only bring disaster to the family. What did you eat? Ah, the immortal pill that Jin Qin Wang sent over, the old woman smiled, a beauty-preserving sacred product, ah. How many people want it but can't even see it? You all ate 5 of them at once, you should be rejoicing. Seeing the ghastly appearance of these girls from the main family, the old woman's original sense of guilt completely disappeared. If she had to say, Jin Qin Wang was really benevolent. There were many ways to sterilize a woman, why bother to make such a beauty-preserving good thing? She was already old and wouldn't drool over this thing. However, her married daughter and daughter-in-law should like it very much. In any case, they had already reached the age of old pearls and their children were already more or less born. To be able to become beautiful, who wouldn't want it? Unfortunately, it was just a thought. She didn't have the courage to touch this batch of pills. Otherwise, she wouldn't even know how she died. At this moment, each of them became pale. They no longer pretended to scratch their necks. Instead, they no longer cared about their bearing and reached into their mouths to scratch their throats. Unfortunately, it was all in vain. That fingernail-sized pill not only tasted good, it also melted in their mouths. How could he really dare? How could he really dare? We are from the main family of the Pei family. The Pei family is the richest family in Jiangnan. The richest family, do you understand? Wasn't he afraid of offending the Pei family? Who gave him the guts? Who gave him the guts? Ah. The old lady stood at the side as if she was watching a joke. They didn't live up to their name. So what if they were the #1 clan? Who gave Jin Qin Wang the guts? Of course, it was his birth. Moreover, what he gave was a beauty supplement, and it was a prescription from the Pei family. As long as he did not mention the side effects of this medicine, who could criticize him? Speaking of side effects, he had to talk about why the Pei family gave him this prescription. If he revealed it, not only could he push it away cleanly, but he could also openly cause trouble for the Pei family. The old madam suddenly realized the reason why Jin Wang used the immortal Dan instead of other extinct medicines. It was indeed brilliant. What's the use of shouting at me? If you have the guts to shout at Jin Wang, you might as well see if he has the guts to directly dispose of you. Old witch, you dare to help outsiders against your own people? Grandfather will not let you off. Just you wait, the old woman looked at them coldly. This was exactly what she wanted. She flicked her sleeves and left. Old witch, stop for me, she shouted fiercely, but this was not her own territory. As the host, when she became ruthless, could you, a mere guest, have the advantage? After leaving this side, she looked at the closed door on the other side. Ever since Pei Yuing was violently beaten, she had not left that room. And those who had seen her, other than the doctor, were only the two servant girls who served by her side. It must be said that the two servant girls had also been dealt with very miserably. There was no other way. Who told their master to be favored, they also followed suit. A few days ago, the old madam did not pay attention to her at all. Now, she directly let someone knock on the door. The door was only opened a crack when it was rudely pushed back. If the servant girl who opened the door did not retreat quickly, she was afraid that she would have been directly knocked to the ground. Compared to the previous people who did not know life from death, they only had panic in their eyes. "Where is your miss?" The servant girl stammered and could not say anything. The old madam was also impatient and directly sent someone to find her. The room was so big that it did not take much effort. However, this move did not find her. The old madam sneered. Did they really think that she was too ashamed to see people and hid in the room and did not go out? "How long has your master been out?" "Old madam, shut up, I am just a commoner with no rank and no grade. I am not worthy of this title. Only people in the main house dare to break the rules. Just say it, how long has your master been out? Don't talk nonsense. Just went out not long ago." This servant girl was not arrogant at all now. "Come, go and find the miss of the 4th generation of our main house. She is the role model of the Miss Pei. She cannot lose face for the Pei family." The old madam did not think that Pei Yuing could leave this house. Because of the recent events, she gave a death order. The front door, back door, side door, and corner door of the house were all very strictly controlled. If anyone received benefits and secretly let a master out, if they were caught by her, it would not be as simple as being sold. Sure enough, Pei Yuing was still looking for an opportunity to go out. Unfortunately, she was not able to do so. She was still secretly hating that an ordinary house was so strictly guarded. She thought that there was some treasure in this broken house and did not know that this was the influence of Jin Wang. Pei Xiuying was not familiar with this house. When the servants here deliberately wanted to find her, it was simply a matter of time before they caught her. Pei Yuing was forcibly pulled back, but she firmly protected the headscarf on her head. Her face and body were fine, but her head, the old madam glanced at her and declined to comment. "Miss, it is best to know your place. Don't think that you can achieve your goal after leaving this house. Jin Wang's people are guarding outside. Because of your ambition and self-righteousness, you have harmed the Pei family to this extent. Do you really want the Pei family to be exterminated before you are satisfied?" Pei Yuing pursed her lips and did not speak. But whether it was the clenched fists or the fluctuating emotions in her eyes, it all showed that her mood was not calm. Based on what was the basis of putting all the blame on her head? She did not wash away the disgust of great-grandmother and sacrificed her reputation. Was everything she did for herself? Who could she find to reason with for everything that she was suffering now? It was obvious that everyone hurt her, betrayed her, schemed against her, but now they wanted her to bear the burden. Don't even think about it. You were heartless first, so don't blame her for being unjust. Even if she died, she would also pull a group of people down with her. Tang Zhu, what is the matter? Pei Yuing restrained all the emotions in her eyes and asked faintly, as if nothing had happened. Astonishment flashed through the old madam's eyes. With this temperament, it was no wonder that the clan head would make such a decision. However, to let the chess piece know that her original position was actually a shield, she would only be reduced to an abandoned chess piece in the end. It was okay if she was hit until she could not recover from the setback, but the one in front of her was afraid that it was not the case. She might even bite back. But this had nothing to do with them. Even if she was to be angered, it would depend on whether she really had the ability to deal with them after destroying the main family. The old madam let someone give her the porcelain bottle. Pei Yuing opened the porcelain bottle and poured out the pills inside. Although there was a difference in size, but just based on the smell, she could distinguish what it was. It's not Old Dan. I have already eaten it. Tang Zhu does not need to worry that I am acting in front of Jin Qin Wang. However, for me, it is purely a beauty-preserving sacred product. I heard that it is difficult to make and the herbs used are expensive. This kind of good thing, there is no reason not to eat it. Then she naturally remembered Jin Qin Wang's words that day and unhesitatingly ate all the pills one by one. The old madam was very clear that this kind of woman would be very frightening. Tomorrow, I will send you and aunt back to the main residence. The ageless Dan has been sent, it is indeed time to go back. Thus, I will trouble Tang Zhu. At this time, Pei Yuing looked very normal, but the old madam felt that her insides were full of darkness and there was a hidden poisonous snake. Moreover, it was the kind that harbored hatred and could choose to devour people at any time. She did not say anything and only wanted to leave quickly. Respectfully sending Tang Zhu off. Pei Yuing bowed gracefully. Soon, there was only Pei Yuing and her two servant girls left in the room. The servant girls shrunk back. They also felt that the current master was extremely frightening because this reaction was simply not normal. Although the Pei clan head's wife would occasionally wake up, but this situation was not optimistic. There was a possibility of her dying at any time. If she could hold on until she returned to the main residence and then die, it was not bad. She simply packed up and the people of Li Hongyuan would not stop her. It was worth mentioning that the Pei clan head did not receive any news from Chuan Zhoufu for a long time. His heart was faintly uneasy and sent someone to Chuan Zhoufu. However, that person was also considered smart. After sensing that something was wrong, he did not go near the Pei clan residence and immediately rushed back. When the Pei clan head received the news, the uneasiness in his heart became more and more obvious. He always felt that something big was going to happen. After hesitating for a while, he decided to personally go to Chuanzhou. Then, when he approached Chuanzhou, he met the people of Pei clan who were returning. Just simply understanding the situation, the Pei clan head who could laugh at any time had his face completely sunk. It was unprecedentedly serious. His 5 fingers could not stop digging into his palm. Things were completely out of control. Perhaps he had taken some things for granted, but he did not think that this was all his fault. Although he sensed that there was something wrong with Pei Yuing, but this was not the time to persuade her. This great-granddaughter's conduct were all taught by him. Jin Qinhuang's matter was out of expectation because he did not understand enough. As for Pei Yuing, the Pei clan head really did not think that she could turn over any big waves. Later on, he would pacify and appease her. The most urgent matter was those famous scholars of Pei clan. They must not be destroyed by Li Hongyuan. Once they were destroyed, Pei clan would really have no chance to make a comeback. The Pei clan head also understood that because Jin Qinhuang deliberately blocked the news, it was very likely that the time he received the news was already late. But he could not sit and wait for death. He wrote a letter and sent it out with the fastest speed. At the same time, he also sent a letter to each family's in-laws. Inside, he expressed all kinds of concern and mentioned some people in their clan. In essence, it was the same trick that the Pei clan head used to threaten Min clan. It was just that he did not make it clear. However, no one was stupid. How could they not see the threat in it? When those people received the letter, their faces were all ashen. They probably did not think that the Pei clan head would be so despicable and shameless. However, because the matter came so suddenly, they also had doubts in their hearts. What happened that made this old thing Pei suddenly release something that could be used against their clan? It was obvious that there was something unusual. After that, when the people of Pei clan's reputation were met with mishaps one after another, they finally reacted. Someone wanted to deal with Pei clan. Moreover, they had found the foundation and used all their strength to chop it down. It made people only feel fear and trepidation. Whether or not to help Pei clan became a big problem. If they helped, they would offend the person who wanted to deal with Pei clan. Who knew if they would become the next target? If they did not help, they would be held by this old thing Pei and could be dragged down by him at any time. Of course, these were all for later. Let's not talk about it for now. The Pei clan head wrote the letter and ordered them to return to Pei County. Other than that, he did not say a word. He did not even look at his seriously ill wife. He only closed his eyes and rested, thinking about what to do next. At the same time, Jingwan and the rest also packed their luggage and prepared to leave Chuanzhou Prefecture and head to the next prefecture city. The accompanying officials naturally had to stay and continue to work hard until the new officials were in place. It had to be said that when Jin Qinwang left, the entire Chuanzhou Prefecture city, from the top officials to the bottom of the commoners, did not let out a sigh of relief. There were even people who secretly clapped their hands in celebration. For the commoners, punishing the corrupt officials was something to be happy about. However, if the turmoil was too big, it would only make people involuntarily panic. Therefore, it was better to leave, better to leave. Jiangnan had 4 prefectures and 28 prefectures. Li Hongyuan was prepared to go to every prefecture city. However, because the matter had been dealt with so far, they could follow the same pattern in the prefectures later. If there was a special situation, they would deal with it specially. This was the so-called killing the chicken to warn the monkey. The living king of hell was too ruthless. He did not show mercy and was not afraid of offending people. Naturally, no one dared to stroke the tiger's whiskers at this time. As long as Jin Qinwang was in Jiangnan, all the officials had to behave themselves with their tails between their legs, including the neighboring prefectures. At this time, they were all very careful. Although they had to continue with their work, they were also very idle. Now, they were really focused on sightseeing. Sitting on the boat, Jingwan leaned on the windowsill, enjoying the breeze. It was incomparably comfortable. Baishao and Daybreak did not hesitate to choose to follow. If they stayed in Chuanzhou Prefecture, according to Jingwan's temperament, she would definitely leave at least 2 close people to take care of them. Jingwan did not have many people by her side. If they went together, she could casually take a little time to take care of them. At other times, it would not affect serving Jingwan. In Jingwan's view, this was also the best. After all, Gong Jiu would definitely follow. With Gong Jiu looking at them from time to time, naturally, she would be more assured. After Baishao's wound was stitched up, it recovered quickly. After sleeping in bed for a few days, she slowly got out of bed and walked. Gong Jiu paid attention to her injury at all times, preparing to perfect this method and sort it out. For the treatment of external injuries, this would become a very important method. For the average person, it was hard to say. After all, there was a saying that the body, hair, and skin are given to the parents, do not dare to damage it. However, on the battlefield, it was different. This may save more people's lives. As for Daybreak, because they were all superficial wounds, they had basically scabbed over. However, there were too many parts of his body that were densely packed together. If he moved, the scabbed areas would be in pain. If he wanted to move freely, he would still need some time. Her recovery was good, and her mentality seemed to be fine. Jingwan was naturally relieved. Perhaps in consideration of their situation, they still used the waterway to go to the prefectural city, and not the prefectural city closest to Chuanzhou Prefecture. Seeing this, Bai Xiao and Daybreak were moved. They did not say anything, but focused more on recuperating. They hoped that they could recover soon and serve Jingwan better. Li Hongyuan naturally understood Jingwan's intention. Anyway, their return journey was uncertain, so it did not matter if they took a detour. However, when Li Hongyuan occasionally saw Bai Xiao and Daybreak, who came out for a little exercise, he looked as if he was looking at dead people. How could they distract his wife? If it were not for the fact that Jingwan would be angry, he would definitely kill them directly. This was the first time that Daybreak encountered such a situation, and her legs almost went weak. Bai Xiao was fine, and she was used to this kind of thing. Therefore, after Li Hongyuan left, she just calmly patted Daybreak's arm and said, "It's okay. His Highness values the princess too much, and he will not allow the princess to look at others. However, as long as we serve the princess well, the prince will at most be cold. The princess is the most important one, and we just need to avoid him." https://11/11807/6653988. Mobile edition website, M. Chapter 352. Therefore, in the eyes of these maids, the noble Prince Jean was a paper tiger to some extent. He looked fierce, but in fact, he had no deterrent power. Even the King of Hell silently shed tears of sympathy for him. Jingwan's following daily routine was basically like this: she followed Li Hongyuan from one prefectural city to another. After settling down, she rested for a night and then began to receive the wives of officials. To put it bluntly, she began to receive gifts. Because she received too many gifts, she didn't even look at them in the end. When she had accumulated enough, she sealed them and sent them back to the capital to be presented directly to Luqingdi. Of course, because the matter in Jiangnan was not over yet, in order to avoid alerting the enemy and causing some people in the capital to collude with Jiangnan and reduce Jingwan's income, she only presented a list for the time being so that Luqingdi would have an idea of who to settle the accounts with and how much would fall into his pocket in the end. As for the gold and silver in the treasury, Li Hongyuan was kind enough to keep some. The rest was all sent to the capital to fill the national treasury. This situation lasted for about 2 days. After that, it was time to go out. Of course, this was only if there were places worth visiting in and out of the capital. After these 2 days, she collected the gifts and cleaned up the treasury. Then she clapped her hands and left confidently. Those who hadn't sent gifts would suffer because of this. It had nothing to do with Jingwan. Anyway, she wasn't the one who was anxious. Whether or not they sent gifts had nothing to do with whether they would be settled or not. On the contrary, the more gifts they sent, the more likely they would be settled. However, the more indifferent Jingwan appeared, the more anxious some people became. They even became more and more obvious. In the end, on the second day after they settled down, there were people scrambling to be the first to come to their door. One gift was more valuable than the other. Little did they know that after they left, some people's faces became colder and colder. When his wife was unhappy, Li Hongyuan naturally had to coax her. Every time he coaxed her, he would write down a debt for some people. This account book was getting thicker and thicker. The truly magnificent mountains and rivers were usually not near the prefectural city. After Bai Xiao and Daybreak were able to move freely, Li Hongyuan began to take a detour. The prefectural city could go to hell. Since his wife was unhappy, he naturally did not hesitate to create psychological pressure for them. Jingwan wondered if this was a good idea. And Bai Xiao, Li Hongyuan stroked Jingwan's hair. Wan, I can tolerate you infinitely, but it doesn't mean that I have to continue tolerating you because of other people. Just because of 2 maidservants, I deliberately changed the schedule and even delayed the time. Because of you, I didn't care about it. But now, when the master goes out to play, he has to worry about whether the servants have recovered from their injuries. Is this appropriate? Also, don't say that Bai Xiao was schemed against because of me. As a servant, it's natural for her to die for her master. You're soft-hearted and kind, especially to the people around you. Look, which maidservant can be as carefree and happy as the ones around you? The way to manage your subordinates also needs to know when to relax. Blindly being kind will only make them more arrogant. There are even some who can't see their own status clearly and think that they are on the same level as their master. Now, because of me, you're receiving large amounts of money and gifts. Are you sure that they don't have any thoughts in their hearts? Are you sure that they won't rely on your support in the future or even use your name to wantonly amass wealth outside? When the day comes, I'll replace all the people around you who have too much affection for you. At that time, you won't be angry with me. Jingwan raised her head and stared at him blankly for a moment. Then she reached out and hugged him, burying her face in his chest. A moment later, a muffled voice came, I know. I'll listen to your arrangements for the following itinerary. In the end, it was because she had lived in a completely different civilized society for more than 20 years. Her character could be said to have been molded at that time. If she completely denied forgetting, then she was actually denying forgetting herself. That kind of extremely strict and clear class concept, no matter how hard she tried, could not completely integrate with the current situation. Not to mention her close relatives, if the people close to her had bad conduct or did something wrong, she would not be merciful. However, if they knew their place and served her wholeheartedly, it was inevitable that she would be more considerate and take care of them a little more. Human nature, this kind of thing, was really hard to say. For example, Bai Xiao now believed that as long as she served Jingwan well, Wang Ye wouldn't do anything to them. In the future, would she think that if she made a mistake and had Wang face protection, Wang Ye still wouldn't have any thoughts? If a small mistake was forgiven, her courage would grow bigger and bigger. It was possible that she would make a big mistake that would implicate Jin Qin Wang. At that time, it would be too late to save her. Don't say that the mistakes made by the servants had nothing to do with the master. In fact, the mistakes of the servants, the master had to pay the bill even more. How many people had played themselves into this because of not strict enough? The several head maidservants around her were indeed important people to her. But, in comparison, could they be more important than Li Hongyuan? Could they be more important than Luo family's relatives? Although some things only existed as a possibility, there wasn't even a spearhead right now. This was the so-called prevention was better than cure. After thinking through this, Jingwan also knew what to do in the future. As for going on a scenic tour, would it have any impact on the officials in Jiangnan? Speaking of which, whether they were good or bad, it really had nothing to do with her. She really didn't do anything wrong and wouldn't be afraid because of their pressure. Li Hongyuan gently stroked Jingwan's back. It's just talk. It's far from that level. Even if that day really comes, there's still me. Jingwan, with a bit of attachment that she herself didn't realize, rubbed against Li Hongyuan's arms. Li Hongyuan's eyes narrowed, expressing that he was very satisfied with the current result. Therefore, no matter how dignified his words were, in essence, he was just jealous. Because it wasn't easy to deal with people, he could only use roundabout tactics. Those reasons that he said, in his eyes, simply didn't take them seriously. If someone really did that, he naturally had a way to remove himself from Wan. If he couldn't remove himself, then he would let those who wanted to punish them, and those who could punish them, shut up. If they didn't shut up, then they would completely shut up. Our living king of hell, in order to make Yama Wang Fei's heart and eyes be wholeheartedly devoted to him, could be said to be painstaking and scheming. For serious matters, he wouldn't necessarily put in so much effort. On the surface, Jingwan had Li Hongyuan under control, but in reality, if Li Hongyuan wanted to, it was not impossible for him to slowly clean up the people around Jingwan secretly without arousing Jingwan's suspicion. When his wife threw herself into his arms, of course, Li Hongyuan was not Lu Xiaohui. The hand that gently stroked Jingwan's back gradually changed. Jingwan herself might not be aware of the sensitive spots on her body, but Li Hongyuan was very clear. It was too easy for him to make Jingwan fall in love with him. Jingwan naturally noticed when Li Hongyuan was restless, but she didn't resist. As for the fact that it was daytime now, she had been with Li Hongyuan for a long time, so the daytime was nothing. She had played many tricks. In the beginning, she was immature and sensitive. In the past few months, she gradually blossomed fully, and bloomed under Li Hongyuan's hands. As a result, Li Hongyuan controlled it very well. As a result, Jingwan basically wouldn't reject him unless it was a special situation. After rejecting him, she would suffer for a long time. Besides, Li Hongyuan basically wouldn't give her a chance to reject him. He was already burning with passion, but he still endured and waited for his wife to take the initiative. There was something strange about the maidservants, but Jingwan was a little lazy at the moment and didn't have the energy to pay attention to it. After dinner, Jingwan didn't feel sleepy, so she went to do painting for 2 hours. Li Hongyuan accompanied her the whole time. In fact, Jingwan focused on painting, and he focused on watching Jingwan. Then she had a good night's sleep. When she woke up the next day, she was 100 times more energetic. Today, they were going to climb the famous mountains and tread the strange peaks. According to the estimation, it would take at least 2 days. For the sake of the scenery, they wouldn't be in a hurry. Therefore, they would spend at least 3 days and 2 nights on the mountain. Although Bai Xiao looked fine now, she also knew that it was not suitable for climbing. If there was an accident, it would be troublesome and a burden. Your Highness, I haven't recovered from my injury. I can't serve you by your side. Please forgive me, Your Highness. It's not a matter of guilt. Your health is important. It's not too late to wait until your injury is fully recovered. Black Sister wanted to stay, but she also knew that it was impossible. When the princess went out, at least one of her sister and her would follow. Your Highness, I rarely go out in the past. I don't have enough strength. I would like to ask to stay and accompany Bai Xiao. Please allow me. Daybreak said. That's fine. I'll ask the prince to leave a few more guards. If you are bored in the next 2 or 3 days, you can go out for a walk. Thank you, Your Highness. After the arrangements were made, the group of people set off in a mighty manner. Li Suyan was sent out to do errands again. Yu Zhongqing and Master Hua Kan were both there. In this way, someone seemed to be more miserable. Looking at the beautiful mountains and rivers, the plank road of the stairway to heaven, Jingwan suddenly missed the camera. Such a scenery, unless a painting master stayed for a long time, absolutely no one could stay in a short time. However, since it was a tour, it was naturally important to have a state of mind to experience the natural scenery. After experiencing that feeling, there was no need to pay too much attention to other things. Perhaps it could leave a deep impression in one's heart and leave it on the painting scroll later. Because they were not in a hurry and just strolled up the mountain, the strength of the maids was completely enough to support them. However, at some point, Jingwan began to act shamelessly. Li Hongyuan smiled faintly. In front of so many people, it was rare that Wan was willing to be close to him. He did not even need to give any hint. Without saying anything, he half squatted down. Jingwan smiled and pounced on him, hugging his neck. Li Hongyuan's hand supported her buttocks. He was still moving up step by step at a steady pace, as if there was no one else on top of him. Although the weather was still hot, the higher the mountain, the cooler it would be. Jingwan did not know the specific altitude of this mountain because it did not coincide with the geography of her previous life. This made Jingwan suspicious of the idea that it was a parallel universe of her previous life. However, there was no point in pursuing these questions because there was no answer at all. She just did not know if she would see snow at the top of the mountain. She turned back to ask Sherdaren. Sherdaren was a little ashamed this time. When they first came to this area, for some reason, they did not reach the top. But from this official's experience, there is a high chance that there will be snow. Jingwan nodded to show that she understood and did not make things difficult for Sherdaren. They camped halfway up the mountain for a night. Because they were well prepared, they still had a comfortable time. Because Jingwan was prepared to go to the top of the mountain to see the sunrise on the morning of the third day, they slowed down again on the second day and expanded the range of their stroll halfway up the mountain. At this time, they could see the clouds and fog at the edge of the cliff, which was definitely a great enjoyment. In the end, they camped at a location about half an hour away from the top of the mountain. At this time, they could clearly feel the coldness. Jingwan nestled in Li Hongyuan's arms and slept very comfortably. The next day, she woke up early and simply washed up. You don't have to follow. This kind of poetic scene, Li Hongyuan naturally only wanted to enjoy it with his wife alone. In reality, when the red sun rose, the snow at the top of the mountain was covered with a layer of red with a hint of gold. The churning sea of clouds was even more dyed with deep and shallow golden red. The beautiful scene at that moment was so beautiful that it was enough to make people forget everything around them. Although this was not the first time they had seen the sunrise after coming to Jiangnan, the scenery before was still lacking compared to the one in front of them. So beautiful. Jingwan whispered softly. Li Hongyuan turned his head to look at her and reached out to touch her slightly cold cheek. He felt from the bottom of his heart that no matter how beautiful the scenery was, it could not be more beautiful than the person in front of him. Li Hongyuan had never thought that there would be a day like this. It was beautiful and tranquil, and he wanted it to last forever. The sun gradually rose. Jingwan seemed to have finished feeling emotional. She took Li Hongyuan's hand and said, "I'm done looking. Let's go, let's go. Let's go down the mountain." Li Hongyuan's eyes flashed with helplessness. His little sweetheart actually had times when she ruined the atmosphere. They did not rush down the mountain. It was much faster than going up the mountain. They returned to their temporary residence when night fell. Climbing the mountain was also a tiring thing. That night, they slept very soundly. Next, Shanbei County, Yangzhou Prefecture, and Pei County seemed to be in this territory. https://11/11807/66539992. Mobile Edition. Chapter 353. Li Hongyuan was a man of action, and Jingwan was not one to drag her feet. Once they had decided on their destination, they turned around and started moving. Pei County was very close to Chuanzhou Prefecture, but Jingwan and the rest had taken a big detour. However, they were not in a hurry. On the contrary, there were some things that needed time to ferment, so the current situation was just right. On the way to Pei County, they were neither high-profile nor low-key. Other than the fact that they did not have anything that could clearly identify them, the entire entourage was low-key and luxurious. There were less than 50 guards and they were dressed in ordinary clothes, but they faintly emitted a murderous aura. In short, outsiders would know that this entourage was not ordinary and should not be easily provoked. In the carriage, Jingwan's servants, including Bai Xiao and Daybreak, were all present. Daybreak originally wanted to refuse. After all, her reputation was too great. She even knew a few young masters from the Pei family. If she coincidentally bumped into someone she knew at this time, it would be too awkward. Under normal circumstances, no one would ask her anything. However, she had to be prepared for any eventualities. Furthermore, even if no one asked, they would only think that Wang had taken in a brothel prostitute. Even if she said that she was the Wang Fei's servant girl, in these people's eyes, it was probably just a cover-up. Even though it was not the case, Daybreak did not want to damage Li Hongyuan's reputation. After all, this kind of thing could easily cause a rift between husband and wife. Then obediently stay in the carriage. Li Hongyuan was clearly a little impatient as he threw out this sentence. Right now, Li Hongyuan didn't want to have anything to do with irrelevant women. Even if it was just an act, even if it was just a rumor, it didn't matter how troublesome the other matters were. In this aspect, he would most likely be very annoyed. Therefore, his gaze towards Daybreak became even more unfriendly. Daybreak basically knew that Wang Yi was very possessive and did not like the people who served the Wang Fei, especially her, this troublemaker. Therefore, she sincerely avoided Li Hongyuan. Even if she accidentally bumped into him, she would bow and never raise her head to reduce her presence as much as possible. Even so, she would still bump into the muzzle of the gun. Daybreak only agreed and didn't feel wronged. But sometimes, they felt that if Princess Consort didn't need someone to serve her, they probably wouldn't be able to get close to her. The reason why Jingwan brought Daybreak along was because she didn't want her to think too much. Although she had taken her in, she had also ostracized her. But in reality, once Daybreak's previous identity was known by others, she would definitely be criticized. But there was nothing she could do about it. She had been reduced to a lowly 9 classes, and the general background was not tolerant of them. Jingwan didn't object to Li Hongyuan's decision. It had to be said that the Pei family was not doing well recently. There were problems in all aspects one after another. Not only were there problems with the people, but there were also various businesses. How could the businesses be small in order to maintain the operations of such a large family? As expected, the Pei family received the news too late. Although he sent the letter out as quickly as possible, the famous scholars of the Pei family could not prevent it in time even if nothing happened. And Li Hongyuan's subordinates were also capable of doing things. It was as if a disciple of a great scholar was weeping bitterly in the heavy rain, saying that although his teacher appeared to be upright and elegant, he was actually a beast and was worse than a beast. While he was not at home, he went to his house. His family treated him warmly, but he actually drugged him, humiliated his wife and daughter, and strangled his son to death. That was his teacher whom he respected like a father, but he did such a heinous thing. Under normal circumstances, ordinary people might not believe it, because no matter how they heard it, it was quite ridiculous. However, that man was indeed the disciple of the great scholar of the Pei family. Many people knew that the teacher-student relationship was quite good, and that something had indeed happened to his family. Speaking of which, if it wasn't true, probably no man would fabricate such a thing, right? And the Yaman's arrest seemed to confirm this point. Such a famous person, especially one who was highly respected by scholars, would cause a commotion if something happened to one of them. However, it was not long before a few other famous scholars were exposed one after another. It aroused public indignation and was the most shameful kind. Ordinary people were only interested in the recent news, but among the scholars, it was like a tsunami, an earthquake, a volcano eruption. Many people did not believe it and thought that it must be a trap set by someone, especially when they found out that these people all had the surname Pei. It was obvious that someone was targeting the Pei family. Therefore, even if it was such a scheme, one could not underestimate these people. They had students all over the world, which meant that they might be loyal to the world. They respected and revered their master, and even saw him as a god. Once they recognized him, they would become crazy and paranoid. Then, one should never underestimate the ability of these scholars to stir up trouble. Therefore, in a short period of time, many people wrote in to ask for permission. It seemed that they were still relatively rational for the time being. However, did Li Hongyuan not expect this situation? How could it be? Therefore, the backup plan came. Regarding the Pei family, one thing after another, in some places in Jiangnan, popped up one after another at the same time like bamboo shoots after a rain. Of course, there were some truths and some lies. Many of these were just things that the Pei family had done and were placed on the head of the entire Pei family. The noble and virtuous Pei family, who put aside fame and fortune, constantly thought about returning to the court and releasing another list. On it were densely packed disciples of great scholars. Perhaps some of their families had close connections with the court. This list all hinted that the famous scholars of the Pei family had deliberately chosen these disciples to pave the way for the Pei family. In reality, more than half of the people on the list were officials. 1 or 2, 10 or 8, perhaps it was a coincidence, but what about tens or hundreds? Even some people who originally believed that their teacher was definitely not that kind of person, especially those old foxes in the officialdom, began to suspect that when they or their family members went to him to become his disciple, they were given all kinds of tests and difficulties. In the end, when they finally became his disciple, when they were wild with joy, did their so-called teacher laugh at them and call them fools? Was all of this set up? Once someone began to speculate, naturally, more people would think in this direction. If they were willing, even if they had to give up a lot, it would be worth it. But if they were cheated, then they would burn with anger and want to tear the person who cheated them into pieces. The people who wrote in to ask for permission became fewer and fewer. The people who secretly wanted to get their master out of prison became fewer and fewer. And those in-laws who were threatened by Pei clan head naturally knew the reason why Pei clan head suddenly went crazy and threatened them. They had been eyeing Pei clan covetously for a long time. When Pei clan suffered a calamity, they simply clapped their hands in celebration because they could divide Pei clan. But they didn't expect that old Pei had such a deadly thing in his hands. At first, they had no choice but to help, but now they all fell silent. Until the current Jin Qinhuang's maternal family was exposed, everything became strangely silent. The matter from 28 years ago was once again ruthlessly exaggerated. All the dirty water was poured onto Pei clan, especially the Pei clan head. He didn't care about his own flesh and blood relationship and forced his daughter, yet he still pretended to be sanctimonious. In this, the role of Lu Qingdi was molded into an infatuated man who threw his beloved woman out of the sea of fire, fiercely whitewashing that scum. All of this happened during this period of time, especially the part about Li Hongyuan. It probably happened when Jingwan and the others were climbing the mountain. Jingwan was too busy, so Li Hongyuan didn't specifically tell her. When she found out that they were now on the way to Pei County, Jingwan's expression was a bit subtle. Everything else was fine, but the part about Lu Qingdi. This version, no matter how others see it, no matter what they think, there will be one person who will be very happy. Li Hongyuan said unhurriedly. Indeed, he is obviously a shameless person who snatches by force. Now, perhaps he should be praised by many people. Maybe someone will use this as a blueprint to write an inspiring and tragic love story. What His Majesty wants to see the most is that he and the Imperial Gui Fei are in love, so deeply in love that they have no regrets, right? Maybe he heard too much and thought too much, and even took this as the reality of the past. Wan's idea is not bad. Find someone to write a few storybooks and find a way to send them to him. Wan glanced at him. He really didn't want to miss the slightest opportunity. If the storybooks were in Luqingdi's hands, who would benefit? Without a doubt, it would be this bastard. Luqingdi and his most beloved woman were the fruits of their love. How could he not love them? If Li Hongyuan didn't know what Wan was thinking, he chuckled. In this way, some of the things that made him suspicious in Jiangnan can be wiped out. He will feel even more guilty. His most beloved son is so capable, but he can't inherit the throne. This compensation will probably be like a tide. I don't even have to hide the matter of my contact with the Pei family from him. Anyway, the Pei family has collapsed and can't help me. He doesn't have to worry. I can also miss my birth mother from time to time and tell him what she was like before she got married. Wan reached out and pinched his cheek. Your skin is really thicker than the city wall. Li Hongyuan held her hand. Nonsense, it's at most half the thickness of the city wall. The corners of his mouth curved slightly, and there was a smile in his eyes. Wan was speechless. Li Hongyuan's visit to the Pei family's old residence had been done in advance. Of course, it was the type that didn't require a reply. It was just to let you know when this prince would arrive and to be prepared to welcome him. In reality, the recent events were too fatal for the Pei family. Many clansmen had rushed back. One wanted to avoid it, and the other wanted to find out what was going on. Therefore, the number of Pei clansmen at the Pei family's old residence was more than double the usual number. At the same time, there were also many married daughters of the Pei family who came back with divorce papers. To most people, Patriarch Pei could say no comment. However, to some people, such as the clan elders and the only survivor of the great scholars, who had found a remote place to live for some reason, Patriarch Pei couldn't easily dismiss them. Especially when it came to those heinous matters, he had to explain clearly. Patriarch Pei didn't make up any lies and told the truth. However, the art of speaking was always biased. He said that everything he did was for the Pei clan. His face was expressionless, but he described the current situation of the Pei clan, the challenges they faced, and the heavy responsibility he had to bear in order to maintain the clan and let the clan live happily. He continued until I failed to bring the clan back to glory and instead fell, letting down the ancestors. Tears flowed down his face. He wasn't complaining, but he was complaining. He wasn't trying to shirk responsibility, but he was trying to shirk responsibility. Although she didn't agree with some of Patriarch Pei's actions, as someone who also hoped for the family to return to glory, could she blame him? She couldn't. Moreover, at this time, the most important thing was to think of a way to salvage the situation. They couldn't expect to not suffer any losses. Li Hongyuan controlled public opinion too well. The Pei family's reputation had plummeted. It was already good enough that they could maintain the current situation and not develop in a worse direction. However, it was obvious that this was very difficult. When Patriarch Pei heard that Li Hongyuan came to visit, he stood up righteously and said that everything was his fault. He was willing to bear all the responsibility. If he couldn't do it alone, then everyone in his branch would bear the responsibility. He wouldn't implicate the other clansmen. As for those who were implicated, he couldn't do anything about it. He was willing to atone for his sins in the underworld. As such, no one blamed him. They only sighed helplessly. However, the funny thing was that no one stood up and said that they would bear the responsibility with him. No one knew what he was thinking at that moment. Therefore, when Li Hongyuan's carriage arrived at the entrance of Pei County, there was a large crowd of Pei clansmen. There were almost 1,000 of them. The carriage came to a stop, and Li Hongyuan stepped out of it. In the middle of the procession were 200 to 300 people. They were both old and young, and all of them knelt down. Their leader was none other than clan leader Pei, and all of them were wearing mourning clothes. Patriarch Pei's wife finally couldn't make it through a few days ago. Because of such a big incident, there was no funeral. Other than the main family, they didn't even inform the other clansmen to come back and attend the funeral. Your Highness, this is all this commoner's fault. Please have mercy. Don't take your anger out on the Pei family. With a bang, he kowtowed to the ground. Other than the Pei family, there were many commoners who came to watch the show. https:///11/11807/6653995. Chapter 354. Li Hongyuan stood with his hands behind his back and looked down at clan leader Pei. TSK, he still didn't forget to scheme even at this time. The living king of hell was very unhappy. This commoner knows that he has made a big mistake and angered your highness, but this commoner. Pain flashed across clan leader Pei's face. It was all done by the main family. The rest of the family didn't know. As the saying goes, the ignorant are not guilty. I ask your highness to be lenient. These words were so sincere. As soon as he finished speaking, the people beside him also begged for forgiveness and asked Li Hongyuan to be lenient. However, these people didn't plead for him. Was it because clan leader Pei's prestige was too high, or was it arranged before he came out? As the saying goes, the law can't punish the majority. Clan leader Pei thought that although he had schemed against Li Hongyuan, he didn't cause any harm to him. He had already caused clan leader Pei to fall to such a state. He wouldn't kill him, especially now that his relationship with clan leader Pei had been exposed. If he acted too ruthlessly, he would definitely be criticized. Such ruthlessness and mercilessness, even killing blood relatives, would definitely displease the emperor. Clan leader Pei insisted on this point. That was why he exposed Li Hongyuan as the true culprit behind clan leader Pei's persecution in front of everyone. Then, he used public opinion to threaten Li Hongyuan to not do anything to clan leader Pei. Even if clan leader Pei rapidly shrank and even withdrew from the ranks of aristocratic families, as long as clan leader Pei's foundation was still there, and now that the truth had been revealed, clan leader Pei didn't need to worry about not entering the court and not being related to the imperial family. With clan leader Pei's foundation and many outstanding descendants, it was only a matter of time before clan leader Pei stood up again. Because of all these plans, clan leader Pei's heart was still burning. He didn't look dispirited at all. That was why clan leader Pei had clearly suffered a great loss because of his self-righteousness, but the current situation was still the same. Perhaps clan leader Pei would rise again one day, but it definitely had nothing to do with him. It was Li Hongyuan's nature to never accept threats. Perhaps it was because Li Hongyuan didn't speak for a long time. Some people cautiously raised their heads. Some people were stunned when they saw Li Hongyuan's face clearly, especially the few people around clan leader Pei who looked younger than him. They were obviously clan leader Pei's sons. They were even more stunned when they looked at him. It's no wonder that mother fell sick after seeing you. Only then did he realize that something was wrong. Your Highness, please forgive this commoner. This commoner didn't mean it that way. Mother fell sick because she missed little sister all year round. She fell sick because of depression. When she saw your Highness, she was agitated. Li Hongyuan's lips hooked into a cold smile. This blood uncle of his who didn't know his ranking, mumbled and didn't dare to continue speaking. In the entire Pei County, who didn't know that clan leader Pei's wife had already passed away. Logically speaking, even if she saw her grandson, it was possible that her body couldn't bear the excitement. However, unless she was already a lamp that had withered away and had no regrets after seeing the person she missed, she would be able to smile in the underworld for a short period of time. Other than that, as long as she endured through that period of time, as the saying goes, when a person meets a happy occasion, their spirit would be refreshed. After that, she should be even more healthy. The result was that she fell sick and died. Clan leader Pei's wife had a serious illness, but she didn't pass away in a day or two. Therefore, it made people suspect that being too agitated might not be happy. It could be that Jin Qinhuang was too fickle and said or did something that really agitated the old lady. Under the influence of people with ulterior motives, the people of Pei County knew Li Hongyuan in great detail. Li Hongyuan finally got down from the carriage and walked in front of clan leader Pei. Clan leader Pei has given a lot of thought. Why don't you personally put on a good show of blood splashing on the spot? Wouldn't the effect be even better? These words were neither light nor heavy. The people watching from the outside couldn't hear it, but the people near him could hear it clearly. Clan leader Pei's entire body stiffened. He faintly felt that it might be Wang Ye is joking. This commoner sincerely asks for forgiveness and has no other intentions. Great-grandfather really didn't have any other intentions. Wasn't it because great-grandmother's condition had greatly improved, and you deliberately stopped her medicine in order to scheme against her grandson so that you could achieve some unspeakable goal, causing great-grandmother to be so angry that she vomited blood and died? Not far behind, Pei Xiuying, who was dressed in mourning clothes, suddenly stood up. Her voice was clear and cold as she spoke of the inside story. Her voice faintly contained suppressed pain and grief. Everyone looked at Pei Xiuying with different expressions. Naturally, most of them were shocked. Clan leader Pei didn't turn her head. She just clenched her fists. Her loose skin seemed to be stretched so tight that it was almost flat. Because her head was slightly lowered, no one could see the emotions in her eyes. Pei Xiuying's words weren't finished. That year, you didn't care about the flesh and blood relationship and pushed great-grandmother out, causing great-grandmother to be heartbroken. She accompanied you by your side for decades. Even if she didn't make any contributions, she still gave birth to your children. Everyone else saw her as having limitless glory. In the backyard of a person like you who wants to control everything, what difference is there between her and that puppet? Have you ever truly given her the slightest bit of honor? Now, you don't care about the relationship between husband and wife. In order to achieve your goal, you don't hesitate to kill your wife. How can you bear to do this? Some people looked at clan leader Pei. Their eyes were a bit subtle. Speaking of which, you're a big man and also a clan leader. You have full control of the backyard, hee hee. According to seniority, I'm Jin Qinhuang's cousin's niece. But you schemed and almost sent me to his bed. Under normal circumstances, doing this would only cause people to say a few words. However, for someone who often talks about the rules of an aristocratic family, to do this kind of thing, such a hypocritical thing, how can people despise you? Moreover, you keep telling me that I'm the most honorable daughter of an aristocratic family. I have my dignity and pride, yet you treat me like this. Is it really like some rumors, that we're all playthings for your benefit and there's not the slightest bit of emotion? Pei Xiuying's voice was slightly choked, but every word was exceptionally clear. The people around her were all juniors. In addition, Pei Xiuying's status was high in the past, so no one dared to offend her. Now, they were so frightened by her that their hands and feet went soft. For a moment, no one stopped her. Her parents and grandparents were so frightened that their souls almost left their bodies. But just as they wanted to stand up, they were stopped by Li Hongyuan's low voice. I know that I'm being unfilial by saying this, but it's really great-grandfather that makes people's hearts cold. You even did things that pushed Pei Shi into the abyss. Now, you still want to scheme against Jin Qinhuang. have you thought of the consequences? It's true that Jin Qin Wang is Pei Shi's maternal grandson, but first, he's a prince. Then we talk about other things. If he angers the current emperor, what will happen to Pei Shi? Great-grandfather, don't be obstinate. Wait until Pei Shi is gone, then it'll be too late to regret. Speaking to this point, Pei Xiuying suddenly pulled out a dagger and ruthlessly stabbed it into her neck. That dagger was unusually sharp. In an instant, blood flowed out along the dagger. Pei Xiuying's face flashed with an unusually complex emotion. Then, her eyes started to slacken. Her body went soft and she started to fall down. All of this happened too suddenly. The people around her all had their heads lowered. Until she fell down, they saw the bright red blood. One by one, they screamed and scattered. As a result, the large circle around Pei Xiuying was completely empty. Only she was left lying in the middle. Her body was white and dazzling red. Such a sharp contrast inexplicably made people somewhat frightened. Placing righteousness before family, this kind of thing, some people praised. But there were also people who felt that this kind of person was heartless and unscrupulous. Not only was she unfilial, she was also disloyal, heartless and unjust. In short, if it was their own family, they couldn't wait to strangle her to death. Because there was no lack of people who scolded Pei Xiuying in their hearts. Naturally, there were also people who doubted the authenticity of it. After all, Pei clan head's good name was out there. Now, she was dead. She committed suicide. Without any hesitation, she sacrificed herself for her family. She might be unfilial, but she used her life to atone for her sins. No matter what, everything could be wiped clean. Only then did clan head Pei stand up. His body was faintly trembling. He slowly turned around and saw Pei Xiuying lying in a pool of blood with her eyes wide open. His eyes were filled with deep disbelief and uncontrollable anger. He was actually framed by someone he had carefully cultivated. Moreover, because the other party was dead, there was no way he could clear his name. Compared to losing his life in public, no one would believe his words. He thought that everything was under his control, but reality gave him a ruthless slap. He thought that she was just a good chess piece. Even if she was crippled, he could still squeeze her a little more. https://11/11807/6653997. We will handle it as soon as possible. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.